Hello, I'm Salim Abraham. You're watching InfoFeed. March 15, 2026, 16 days into a conflict that has set the Persian Gulf ablaze and rewritten the rules of modern warfare. The man holding the White House ledger sat across from Margaret Brennan, unfaced the nation. Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economic Council, was there to deliver a number that's both a clinical data point and a psychological shock to the global system. $12 billion. That's the price tag of Operation Epic Fury so far. But behind that figure lies a narrative of staggering military consumption, a 47-year geopolitical grudge, and an energy gamble that has the world holding its breath. Hassett's disclosure was delivered with a jarring level of confidence. The latest number I was briefed on was 12, he said, confirming that the US is burning through cash at a rate of roughly $750 million every 24 hours. But Hassett wasn't sounding the alarm. Instead, he was dismissive, arguing that the US doesn't even need to ask Congress for a supplemental budget. His logic? The military is currently liquidating existing inventory of expensive, precision-guided missiles that were already paid for and sitting in warehouses. Waiting for this exact, long-simmering scenario, it's a bold, perhaps dangerous claim. That you can fight a major regional war on a prepaid credit card.
To understand why the bill reached $12 billion in just over 2 weeks, you have to look back at the irony of the 20th century and the brutal math of the 21st. The 47-year circle. The history of this war did not begin with the launch of the first Tomahawk on February 28. It began in 1979. In a tragic historical loop, the US is now spending billions to destroy the very military infrastructure it helped build. In the 1970s, the US turned Iran into the gendarme of the Gulf, arming the Shah with F-14s and advanced radar. Today, Operation Epic Fury is the final violent closure of that relationship. A 16-day effort to dismantle a fortress 50 years in the making. The asymmetric math trap. The financial toll is driven by a mathematical trap that has historically bled superpowers dry. The US spent, in the first 48 hours, the US spent $5.6 billion on munitions. These are Tomahawk missiles at $3.6 million apiece, and SM-3 interceptors designed to hit ballistic missiles in space. The Iranian spend, Tehran is fighting back with Shahid drones, essentially flying lone mourners with explosives, that cost as little as $35,000. When you use a multi-million-dollar missile to swat a drone that costs less than a family sedan, the burn rate becomes an existential threat to the treasury. The decapitation and the vacuum. The mission's intensity was dictated by its objective regime change. The $12 billion price tag includes the cost of the opening salvo that successfully assassinated Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and his top aides. While Secretary of War Pete Hegseth claims the mission is laser-focused on dismantling Iran's nuclear and missile production, the death of the Supreme Leader has created a power vacuum. History, specifically the 2003 invasion of Iraq, reminds us that while $12 billion can buy the destruction of a regime, the cost of the peace that follows can reach into the trillions. The energy gamble, 1979 versus 2026. In 1979, an Iranian revolution brought America to its knees at the gas pump. Today, with the Strait of Hormuz effectively closed and 1,000 oil tankers stranded, Brent crude has surged past $105 a barrel. Hassett's defense is simple. America is not going to have its economy harmed. We have lots and lots of oil. He argues that because the US is now a major producer, it is insulated. But for the rest of the world, especially in Asia and Europe, this $12 billion war is creating a $1 trillion economic catastrophe.
The White House said the war is ahead of schedule. They say the Iranian military is decimated and that the whole thing will be wrapped up in another 4 to 6 weeks. But as the sun rises on Monday, March 16, the reality is more sober. The $12 billion figure doesn't count the human cost the 15 American service members lost, including 6 airmen killed in a KC-135 refueling crash in Iraq just days ago. It doesn't count the thousands of Iranian casualties or the looming humanitarian crisis in a nation of 19 million people. Kevin Hassett's $12 billion is the price of the opening act. It covers the fuel for the B-2 bombers and the exquisite munitions used to level Karang Island. But history is a persistent teacher. It tells us that the initial strike is always the cheapest part of the story. $12 billion can buy a lot of fire. It remains to be seen if it can buy a stable world. Facts inform, but stories transform.